You're listening to the Fezcast, the Saracens fans podcast, bringing you the independent and unhinged views of the voices in our heads, as well as those of our special guests. To get in touch with us, find the Fezcast on social media and listen to us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube and more. Thanks for tuning in and enjoy this week's show.
You're listening to the Fezcast.
Welcome everyone to episode 9, I think, of the Fezcast. We're confused already, we'll go with that. It's a bit of a strange one this week because we've got myself, Jez and Duncan here, all sort of been leading shows all the way through. I think it's the first time all three of us have sat in the same room, so I've pulled the shortish straw where I've got to manage these two. But I'll go to Jez first. This is unusual. You feeling all right?
Yeah, all good actually. I mean, a good weekend. I got my value from TNT Sports, seeing how many points were scored on the weekend. But you boys obviously got your value from your season tickets.
Absolutely, yeah. It was definitely a good weekend out, Duncan, wasn't it?
It was brilliant. I mean, what entertainment. 2 amazing matches. And yesterday on Sunday, got a suntan as well. I was in my T-shirt.
I was privileged in a way I was actually sat in the West Stand on Sunday in the shade, so I don't know why I chose to do that necessarily, but yeah, we should talk about things in order, just to try and bring some organisation to the chaos that we usually have, which means discussing the men's game first, and we'll rewind a little bit because you guys discussed a lot about the lack of England players in the what was the upcoming Saracens Leicester game, and the issues with the RFU and the squad there, and what a difference it could make. Now we've probably got about half an hour's worth of content in the can already that we're not actually broadcasting. But it's worth mentioning the game as a whole and the impact that had on it, because actually it was pretty entertaining despite missing some of our key players, if you put the result to one side for a second, right?
Yeah, undoubtedly so, Matt. I got to agree with you there, mate, because at the end of the day, we all turned around and said, and he looks at it, you guys are sat in the stands, and there's 7 players who would have been playing in that game sat in the stands as well. But by the same definition, we're treated to a proper good game of rugby. And, Leicester probably would look at that as a funny one, isn't it? Leicester will be happy they've got a win. First time in however many years they've got a win. But actually, if you look down at it, and I think if Michael Checker, being as honest a guy as he is, would sit there and say that the fact that they got Andre Pollard on the pitch, they got Mike Brown on the pitch, they got Montosha on the pitch, they got a lot more quality in some key positions on the pitch. Yet we very nearly came back and shopped him with your third and fourth choice hooker, and, KP give him his, bless him, he couldn't hit a barn door with a banjo, could he, at one point with his line-out throws. But, you had players playing out slightly out of position. You had Juan Martin Gonzalez seemingly playing on one arm and yet being brilliant. Cindy was still obviously suffering from his cold. I mean, it was, we ran them close, probably a lot closer than we deserved to, given the teams that were put out.
Talking about KP's throw-ins, I mean, the line-outs that were in front of me, believe you me, Theo McFarlane was performing miracles there to catch those balls. But yeah, before the game, I was with usual bunch, all of them season ticket holders, moaning like hell, saying, we only get 9 home games now, and look how they buggered this one up, with the team. And then the word came through, Goody out, and then Riccione out. We're looking at their pack, thinking, full house. The club's done an amazing job getting a full house in here, and what's it going to be like? But then, as you say, as it turned out, amazingly entertaining game that felt at the end like a victory, because everybody was saying, with the team we put out, getting 2 points out of that was a really good result.
Yeah. I mean, we knew a little bit in advance that this would be the game where we missed some players, and it didn't stop the game from being, on paper, a sellout. In reality, there were a few hundred people missing just because of the kickoff time. That always happens. I've got 5 season ticket holders who sit next to me, but unless it's a 3 o'clock on a Saturday, they don't come. Bizarre, I think, but it is what it is with some people and their logistics. But yeah, almost a full house, treated to some proper entertainment from a side that looked pretty patchwork at the end of it. And like you mentioned, we lost Reece Carey the day before, Marco Riccioni on the day. We're down to the 36-year-old temporary fly half who then got injured himself, and we're playing a bloke who signed 2 days ago who didn't even have a shirt that he could wear. There was so much that went wrong for us, and to get so close was pretty amazing, right, Jez?
Yeah, I mean, I agree. And Tim Swill at fly half, actually, I thought he had a really, really good game. He had a couple of dodgy moments. His kicking was weird. I don't know if you noticed it, that he was kicking off of a kicking tee up against a cone, which was the weirdest thing I've ever seen going, which was hilarious to see. But yeah, he had a really good game, and even with the worst Chris Ashton splash that you're ever likely to see, which is the interesting thing, because Chris Ashton's saying now he's seeing Christian Wade scoring tries at Gloucester that he's still got his boots on him. So if we were down and needed somebody, then Chris Ashton would be somebody who would probably jump at the chance, shall we say? But I mean, I think the players that came in really upped their game hugely, along with players, as I said, who were, who probably, if we'd had a full squad, wouldn't have played. This is the big problem, I think. And I don't know if you agree with me, Duncan, and everything. It's all well and good turning around and saying, yeah, we've got a great little squad there. We've got players who'll step up and do things and everything. But when you've got someone like Juan Martin Gonzalez, who's probably come back a week too soon from injury, doing it this way, it kind of feels like you could be storing up some issues for the future in relation to injuries and players' welfare, which shouldn't be happening when you've got 18 games to play in a league season.
Well, putting the rose-tinted spectacles on, this was a problem because, we had 7 players who were called on by England. I mean, that is an amazing achievement. Should have been 8. And thank goodness it wasn't 8, because it was that number 8 there. We wouldn't have won without him. Secondly, it is great to see people like Brad.
I'll just interrupt you, Duncan. We didn't win with him either, but
No, that is true. I told you it felt like a victory, didn't I? And I'd convinced myself it was, quite clearly. So secondly, it was great to see the likes of Toby Knight and Brandon Jackson and Josh Hallett, Mikoloff, etc., getting on the pitch and doing really well. And I'm no Tim Swiel expert, but I bet that was the game of his life. He was fantastic. Especially given that he didn't know any of the plays or anything. But if I may, just for a second, come back to the 5:30 kickoff. I think a 5:30 kickoff is brilliant. Even on a 3 o'clock kickoff, there are loads of people who don't fill their seats. It's an extraordinary sign of, what a Saracens crowd, that loads of people don't come. It's a bit like Man United supporters. The club managed to sell 35% of the tickets were sold to local clubs. And a 5:30 kickoff always has quite a young audience who probably are doing other things. If it's a 3 o'clock kickoff, there was a good contingent from Leicester. So the travelling aspect of it probably wasn't an issue for them, or not for a lot of them anyway. And it's brilliant on a late autumn evening for a 5:30 kickoff. You have the sun go down, the lights come on, and I think that contributed to the atmosphere.
Yeah, I think it was one of the best atmospheres that we've had there for a while. And you're right, with kickoff times, things we could talk about them all the time, but there's no one kickoff time that's going to satisfy absolutely everyone. And I can totally understand if people are travelling. There's Saracens fans that travel 100+ miles, or certainly from south of London, that they'd not get home until gone midnight, and you can understand why that might be the game that they miss, and that's fair enough. But yeah, totally agree with you that if we're having some 5:30 kickoffs, right now is great. I've done some of them in December. That's not so great.
On Christmas Eve or something daft like that.
Yeah, I do distinctly remember Christmas Eve 5:30. The mulled wine went down pretty well, I'll give you that. But
there was there have been December 8 o'clocks, and that is way too late. That really is. But 5:30 is good, I think.
What I do want to say, though, is, and you mentioned him already, Duncan, we do need to go back to him and say Tom Willis. And I mean, you know, this is my specialist subject, being that I'm a former number 8 myself.
Oh, yeah.
I'll get it in there. But
that's going to be edited out.
But Tom Willis, 22 carries, 12 tackles, 96 metres made, 10 defenders beaten. There's not a number 8 in world rugby who's doing that at the moment. So how he doesn't get to play for England, I do not know. And I mean, I know we've had discussions on our WhatsApp group and everything, saying about experience means an awful lot. I have to disagree with Sam on that one, you know, because Henry Slade's going to go, you can see it coming. Henry Slade's going to go back straight into that England team. You pick on form regardless. And on form, Tom Willis is not just the best 8 in the Premiership. He's the best 8 in the world at the moment.
I think Steve Borthwick watching that is going to feel very, very embarrassed. I mean, it probably people have talked about Club England, and he feels, I'm going to put a club of players together and they're going to have a preference. Hence, moving heaven and earth to get, you know, Slade in there in front of Alex Lazowski. But he must have felt very embarrassed.
Well, I can't see it because we know that Alex Dombran at an international level isn't all that. And I said it last week. He's second choice behind a lad who's an open side at number 8 for England. Ben Hill should be playing open side for England, and Tom Willis should be playing number 8 for England. It's a no-brainer in my book, an absolute no-brainer. And I just don't understand why it's not happening.
No, I don't think many of us do. I mean, Ben Earl will probably start for England, you know, on the basis that he has been superb at number 8 in recent times there. But he's not the best number 8 for Saracens.
Yeah. Oh, no, that's exactly. I know I'd sort of compare what Jez mentioned there, as we've talked on our WhatsApp group about the selection of Henry Slade and the non-selection of Tom Willis. And you can see with Willis, he's the best player in a position that England are struggling a bit in. Like you say, we're playing Ben Earl there, who's not a number 8 first and foremost, and you've got Dombran who's totally out of form. Now, Henry Slade, the last few England games he's played, has played well. So he's got some credit, but there isn't another number 8 that has got credit. So I can understand why Slade might walk into that England team, but I can't see how Tom Willis isn't, after week 1 of the internationals, mysteriously finds himself selected for England.
You'd think he's got to. It's interesting, Ben Earl, I think he was interviewed after the Exeter game, but whatever it was, when he was up in the Oasis, said his favourite position is number 8. Well, he's not going to be there for Saracens for a while unless Tom Willis gets injured.
Yeah, and let's hope you haven't put the kibosh on that one, Duncan.
It's an evening of faux pas.
Yeah. I mean, look, we'll go back to the Leicester game again, because we still need to keep talking about it, because it was quite amazing, really. And like you say, I feel like it was. It felt like a victory. I've walked away from wins feeling pretty disappointed. In fact, I was happier after this weekend than I was after the win over Exeter. And that's just me personally. But there's a few other players I think that are worth mentioning. Can
I mention one first off, because I didn't mention him last week when we talked about it, and it was a real oversight on my behalf. And he didn't start the game, but Josh Hallett was superb against Bristol, did everything he needed to do, but quietly just got on with it, then came on again and gave a bit of energy to the team when he came on as well. And I think, you know, when we look at young players, Jackson's come on as well and done really, really well. You know, and we've talked about these young players stepping up. Josh is another lad who's really stepped up in the last couple of games when he's been given an opportunity.
Definitely. It was a brilliant run and a kick from him.
No, absolutely. It really was. To be honest, there were two things that I was going to mention. One was the bench as a whole, because to be honest, a lot of us, I think, would have looked at the bench that we were putting out and would have gone, you know, that's a Prem Cup bench in a lot of seasons, and that's where we look a little bit weak. If we're against the game, we're going to struggle bringing. I don't mean any disrespect to any of the players, but that's where we're going to struggle. And normally, a bench is a strong point for us. But I actually thought that every single one of them lifted the team in some way. And the other one I wanted to mention was Hugh Tizard.
Again.
We've talked about him a few times this season, where I think his whole Saracens career, he's been doing a lot of unseen grunt work. But I think just this season, he's just added that extra little bit to his game. He's a lot more noticeable on the pitch. And I don't mean that he's been bad in any way when he's not been noticeable, but I think he's just taken that to the next level. Jez?
I was going to say, the funny thing is, and again, it's something that perhaps should have mentioned last week because it was a brilliant piece of commentary from Chris Ashton. But at the women's game we went to, the Ealing Trailfinders game, hilarious thing happened. Little boy come up with his dad, walked past us, and he went, "Dad, I didn't know camels could fist bump and high five." Well, obviously they can, but not only that, they can run like buggery and make put offloads and jump in the line and run a line out. I mean, I think that's what Hugh Tizard brought to his game is that kind of George Cruz-esque kind of running the line out, running the engine room, just working bloody hard and allowing other players to be brilliant off his back.
If we had started with been able to start with Rhys Carey and Marco Riccione, I think there's a very high chance we would have won that game. But having said that, Phil Brantingham's been on twice now and not looked out of place, has he?
No. Yeah, it looks a fantastic acquisition, and I feel sorry for Alec Clary in a way because I think other than being yellow carded for the penalty try, I think he actually had quite a good game as well. I will say again that I think that 5 minutes either side of half time, unfortunately, was the real price. I say 5 minutes either side of half time, 30 seconds either side of half time is more like it. And, on another day, we'd have won the game. But
there's no doubt that was the decisive period.
Oh, yeah.
It was the penalty try, the yellow card, and hence the second try. That was it, wasn't it?
What I did get annoyed was I didn't hear Matt Carley giving too many warnings to Saracens in that position, although they'd given away 2 or 3 penalties. Leicester did exactly the same, and the warning went to him and said, "I don't want to send a player, I don't want to be having that conversation with you. Just sort yourselves out." And there's a few things that I felt, with my rose-tinted glasses on, where I thought Carley was remembered that he likes Leicester Tigers more than us. Is that right? No, I mean, that's a bit unfair on him, And given the way that Gareth Anscombe in the Gloucester game gave abuse to Ian Tempest, that should have seen a red card and probably a long ban, but we won't go into that. But it's like, I know, Matt, you turn around and give it the what about Theo picking the ball out of the back of a ruck and, a typical Theo brain fade. Me personally, having been an area-asked forward in my time, that ball was out as far as I was concerned. That's the attacking team's fault for not protecting that ball, and Theo should have been allowed to play on with that because you want to see, attacking rugby, and he's got an opportunity there, and he's gone. He's seen it. I mean, he came from behind the back foot. I mean, personally, I'd rather have seen that play on there.
Well, to be honest, it's probably closer on second viewing than I initially thought. So yeah, that's fair enough. But at the end of the day, look, we've probably learned an awful lot more from that game and a lot more encouraged from that game than we were from the loss against Quins, from a couple of victories that we've had this season as well. So to do that with as many players missing as we've had, pretty damn good as far as I'm concerned. But one player we are still missing, work this through. Look, one player we're still missing is Olly Hartley.
The man's a genius.
Oh. Seamless. Other than the fact he signposted it, of course.
Nick Mullins, eat your heart out.
Honestly, that was like a Hugh Tizard dummy, that was.
And I'm not even going to be able to edit this in smoothly either, so we'll just leave as it is. But yes, Olly Hartley is still missing for us, and hopefully is on his way back soon. But we were able to, or say we, Duncan was able to catch up with him with a quick 10 minutes. So we'll play an interview with Olly Hartley, hear what he's got to say, and then come back and do something else. We'll figure it out in a minute.
You're listening to the Fezcast.
You are listening to the Fezcast, which is proudly sponsored by the Saracen Supporters Association, and I'm Alison Davis, one of the SSA committee. For a £10 annual subscription, the SSA provides our members with monthly newsletters, virtual and in-person player events, away match ticket allocations, and we organise pre-match gatherings at away matches. We sponsor men's and women's players, and we support the Saracens Foundation Track Club on behalf of our members. On top of all that, every year we have a seasonal SSA badge, which is exclusive to members. Where else can you get that much value for a tenner? Join now at membermojo.co.uk/SSA, or come and see us on match day in the Oasis at the Stonex.
This is the Fezcast.
So I'm here with Olly Hartley, and thanks very much for doing this, Olly, and welcome to the Fezcast.
Hi, mate. Thanks for having me. Hope you're all right.
Yeah, all good. Now, Olly, when players get a bad injury, the feeling amongst the fans is normally one of sadness or disappointment. But with you, it was very different because you'd made about 10 appearances, I think, so far last season. It seemed like every game you were getting bigger, stronger, faster. When you came on against Gloucester, you had a decisive hand in all of the tries after you came on, including scoring 1 or 2, I think.
Yes. The score 1, assist 1, I think we'll say.
Oh, was it? Okay. Well, there was more than 1 assist, I think.
Yeah.
You were really looking good. And then the ball should have been booted off about 4 hours before you got injured. So everybody was really angry. I'm guessing when you have an injury like you have, any of that is just a complete waste of time to think about, and you just have to look forward and get on with things.
Yeah. Obviously, in the moment, you're like, how's this happened? Sure not. The chances of it happening are so low, right? It happened, and I never had like an injury like that before where I guess the pain was obviously bad, but I almost didn't believe what had happened. Do you know what I mean? I was like, knew it wasn't great because I heard a lot of snaps and cracks and pops. So I was like, okay, it's not great. But I remember like the physio coming over, Laura, and being like, can you straighten your leg? And I was like, no. But like, give me 10 seconds. Give me 10 seconds. And I was like, I thought it was going to be all right. You know, I've just like twisted it. And then I think they saw on the iPad, like they have a little iPad that they can use, and they saw obviously it wasn't good. And gas and air and in the brace, and that's when it kind of sunk in that I was probably going to be hitting the sidelines for a while. But yeah, it was quite hard to actually, it didn't really process, you know what I mean? In the moment, I was like, surely not. But then, yeah, you kind of just have to deal with these things. Like in rugby and sport, you're going to get stuff thrown at you, and there's no real positive to being injured, but the mental strength you can get from it is what you have to kind of take. You have to take the positives, or like just see the positives in it.
Yeah, that is interesting. I think that sentiment of I can't believe that happened is what everybody sitting around me was saying, given the timing of when it happened. But it was luckily on the other side of the pitch, so I didn't have a good view. Did your leg get sort of stuck in between some player or something?
Yeah, so I kind of like, there was this prop who's obviously like a big heavy boy, like stepped back into me. I kind of just threw my shoulder at him. He went down. I left my leg there. So obviously all his weight went onto like my knee, but my foot was planted. So the knee just like crushed straight into the floor basically. And yeah, tore my ACL, MCL, meniscus, bit of my PCL, pretty much the full works. Yeah.
Ouch. So when you're coming back from an injury, clearly you've got a medical team, physio team, strengthening team going on. And you mentioned the mental side of it. Do you get any trained, qualified psychiatric, if you like, help to keep you positive?
Yeah, so it's quite funny really. Like we have a psychologist called Jonesy, who's like top lad, like works with all the boys. He also works with education stuff. So I've actually just completed my dissertation, which kind of like fell nicely in the period of being injured, because that's a good 6-month chunk. So he helped me loads with that. And I've actually had like, I know I'm young, but like I've had a few injuries, a few surgeries already. So I was kind of prepared for it, for what was to come. And I knew the crack, and like, yeah, you miss out on stuff. You're not training, this, that, and the other. But I felt like mentally I was actually all right. And like, funnily, like your physio looks after you physically, right? But they're also massive for like mentally looking after you as well, because I spend more time with my physio than I do my girlfriend when I'm injured. Do you know what I mean? Like you're on the physio bed loads, and you're speaking to them loads, and they end up like someone massively that you can lean on and speak to. So they're massively helpful. And like everyone around the club, it's a club where people will ask you if you're all right and how you actually are, and coaches, whoever, will happily sit and have a coffee with you. So it's a good support network that we have here. But yeah, there's definitely a certain few people that can help mentally.
What is that schedule like? How much do you interact with the rest of the guys, and how much are you on your own?
So it's interesting, like, because there'll always be other people that are injured. So, like, when you're injured, you might find yourself really having a lot of time with someone. So, someone like Josh Hallett, over this injury period, he actually tore his hamstring the week before I did my knee. So we had like 3 or 4 months together and just got like a lot closer, and like we're really good friends. You find yourself spending a lot of time with a certain few people that you're injured with. And then again, physios, it might not even be your physio, someone else, your S&C, like you do spend a lot of quality time probably with less people. So you actually do build these like, relationships with people that you might not expect to. And then you still have the time to see the lads, like you still have lunch with the lads. You'll be in the gym when they're gymming. You just won't be on the pitch, or you might just have to be doing rehab while they're like doing some like recovery stuff or something. So yeah, you might not spend as much time, and sort of lads can go like, oh, I haven't seen you in a while or whatever. I feel like you haven't been in, and it's, yeah, you're just doing your graft somewhere else sometimes, but you're still in the club.
So it's not a lonely existence. Mark McCall has been very complimentary about your dedication and sacrifice, he said, in getting back. And I've seen you at matches of the Stone X. I saw you in the crowd at Amptill last season, cheering on your mates. I bet with the start that we've had to this season, you can't wait to get back in the mix.
Yeah, like chomping, like I'm so excited to get back, hopefully. And yeah, I feel like I've grafted hard with my injury. Like I knew it was a long one, and with these long ones, I think the more dedicated and diligent you can be, you can shorten them. I mean, like the first number I heard was 12 months I was going to be out for. Then after the surgery, we managed to bring it down to 9. And then touching a lot of wood and fingers crossed, I've brought it down to sort of around the 6-month mark, and hopefully like in a few weeks I'll be fit. So I've literally done everything I can, I feel like, to get myself back fit. Hopefully it's paid off really, and because of the rugby we're playing, the squad that we have at the moment, you're so happy for the boys and like how they're going, but part of you is just like, man, I want to be out there playing.
I bet it is. So a few weeks, I'll take that as 3 till fitness. You don't have to tell me whether I'm wrong or not. Does that mean you're in contention in that time period?
Yeah, so hopefully, fingers crossed, if selection and all that, and if it feels good, I can get a run around in the Prem Cup, hopefully, which would be like great to sort of see where I'm at.
Oh, that would be brilliant.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, there's another very high profile injury at the moment with Andy Oyama Christie. Yeah. Do you feel a duty, seeing what you've just been through, to go along and help pep him up through it?
Yeah, obviously I texted him straight away because our injury's a bit different in that his would have been a lot more painful than mine and looks a lot worse. But I reckon if he grabs the rehab period with both hands, it won't be like a major long injury. It looks terrible, but yeah, no, I texted him straight away, and obviously he'd be gutted like anyone, but he's really good with that sort of stuff. Like he's so diligent in his craft and like what he does in a rugby sense. I know that when it comes to injury, he'll be like proper diligent with that, and he'll be itching to get back. So yeah, like I think Mark's spoken about it, that hopefully he'll be back before the end of the season, and I've got full faith that he will be, because he's that type of person.
Yeah, I wasn't that far away from that one at the Stoop, and the thought of him being back this season is just amazing.
It's crazy, isn't it? Like the way injuries work sometimes. It can be something so innocuous that puts you out for ages, and something that looks awful, which he still will put him out for a long time. But, you know, like with surgeries and what surgeons can do these days, they can fix you up and you back before you know it.
Amazing. I mean, you mentioned Josh Hallett a little while ago. I personally am very excited at the moment, because it feels like there's a generation of younger players coming through. I mean, it was spearheaded by yourself and Theo Dan, but we're seeing Tobias Elliott, Josh Hallett, Brandon Jackson, Charlie Bracken, Toby Knight, Nathan Mikolov, all getting a shout this season. And we'll see many of them on display tomorrow, and even more in the Prem Cup. As you were sort of all together through the Amptill process, it must be exciting to see them coming through to join you and Theo.
No, yeah, it is. It is exciting. And obviously, like boys like similar my age, we've trained, you know, for a couple of years together on like the bibs, as you call it, and like playing for Amptill and stuff. And boys to get their shot is class. And I think it goes down to like the hard work that they've put in, week out, like training. They're giving everything to every session. Like also to the coaches, like James Tyrrell, who's sort of looks after the younger lads, the academy boys, like he puts in a hell of a graft with coaching the boys in the week, making sure that we're prepping the team. He's also working at Amptill, making sure that he can keep a good relationship with them, making sure the boys are playing well there. So he works his socks off with them. So it's credit to him that they're all getting their opportunity, I guess.
Yeah, I mentioned to Josh Hallett and Toby Knight when I had a chance to chat with them up at Ampthill that it seemed like a ridiculously well-organised system, that you get a run out in a competitive league and at the same time you're getting the crossover training and being part of the Saracen setup as well.
Yeah, no, like it is so beneficial for us. I think you get to a point where sometimes you can train and you get better like that, but sometimes you just need to go out onto the pitch and be there in the actual situations. And that's how you get better. So sometimes just playing is the answer. And to be able to get that on our front door with them is huge.
Yeah. Is there anybody I haven't mentioned that we need to keep an eye out over this the upcoming run of Prem Cup games?
Yeah. So okay, let me go back because that's probably where I know more. But a couple young lads, Jack Bracken's, Charlie Bracken's younger brother. He'll hopefully play if he's all good, and he's sharp. And Angus Hall as well on the other wing, probably he's sharp as well. It's like a centre wing. Jack's like a wing fullback. They're both young, so they're both like 18, 19, but they're both great athletes, understand the game well. So yeah, they'll probably go well if they're given a shot.
I will have to keep an eye out for those.
Yeah.
I mean, you've had not just injury disruption in your career. You were at Wasps when that whole episode happened. I'd imagine it needed the same kind of mental strength to see you through then when the whole world must have been up in the air.
That was probably like the exact same feeling to when I did my knee. What, like the sort of feeling of like, this isn't like real, like this isn't actually not like, you know, rugby. Well, obviously Worcester went under, but it's like, this isn't going to happen to us. You know, Wasps, rich history, won European competitions, English Premiership. And then again, it's a thing of like just having to deal with it. Like, didn't really have time to like process it or like do this or that. It is what it was, and you just had to, deal with it. And obviously it was a sad time, but I mean, like you see from a lot of young lads have gone on to like accelerate their career and done really well, which is probably very bittersweet for a lot of people that were with. But at the end of the day, you're happy for everyone that they're going well.
Absolutely. Well, Olly, thanks once again for doing this. It's been a real pleasure to have this chat, and really looking forward to those few weeks, however many they are passing, and seeing you out there once again.
Perfect. I appreciate it a lot. Thanks, Duncan.
Cheers.
You're listening to the Fezcast.
Well, lovely to hear from one of our, I was just about to say young rising stars, but I think he's jumped in pretty quick and become a pretty firm star already, hasn't he, Duncan?
He's just, as I said in the interview, he's just a bit ahead of the crop we were talking about earlier, who are getting a good run out. And interesting to hear of the players who haven't been in the first team this season, that he should pick Charlie Brackham's brother Jack as one to look out for in the Prem Cup. And good of him to say, because I gather it's a dangerous thing for them to predict when they might back, but expecting to see him back in the Prem Cup. The rumour I heard on yesterday, Sunday, I think, was that Sam Spink could be back within a week and Olly Hartley within 2. So we'll suddenly be flush with centres if that's the case.
Well, that's really good news. I thought it was really interesting the way that you talked about as well, you know, the mental side of injuries. Everybody thinks about the physical side of injuries and rehabilitation, but being off from doing what you love doing, and I know that myself, albeit at a lower level, but having a season out injured where you just can't play. Well, I did manage to get sent off in a game whilst on crutches, but that's a different story.
Not surprising.
Yeah, having a nurse's did always happen. But, you know, that side of not being able to get out there and get on the paddock with your mates, it's really important that clubs deal with that, isn't it, Duncan?
Yeah, and it's not surprising, is it, that Saracens have got trained psychologists on the staff to give them that boost to get through it. And at the same time, the coaches and everybody is making sure that they're spending time with them to keep the spirits up, as it were. The other thing that was, I hope he's right about, is expecting to see Andy Christie back before the end of the season, which is just an extraordinary thought. Yeah, well, having seen the injury.
Yeah, I mean, Andy's probably got a long road ahead, and yeah, it's probably an optimistic prediction. And you know, maybe we'd hope that actually he can just work his way back in slowly. But there you are.
We shall see.
Yes, but yeah. Fingers crossed that we do see Olly in the cup and back in contention pretty soon, because he's someone that, I mean, he was already being spoken about as a bolter for England at one point, wasn't he? And had it cut short from him. So yeah, it'd be fantastic to see that. We'll get on to women's rugby. brilliant game on Sunday, and we'll talk about that in a bit. But first, we'll play in some of the post-match interviews that we had. So I actually had 3, and one of them was 2 seconds long, and it was actually from Marley Packer, who came off the bench for 30 minutes. And I can't actually play the 10-second interview there because none of it is broadcastable. She told me how tired she was after that half an hour. But we did have a proper chat with head coach Alex Austerberry and double try-scoring debutant Gabby Senft. So I will play those in now and we'll come back and have a chat in a bit.
You're listening to the Fezcast.
Hi, Alex Austerberry here, Director of Rugby for Saracens Women. You're listening to the Saracens Fezcast.
This is the Fezcast.
So post-match on the Fezcast with Alex Austerberry after a game where I don't even know where to start, to be honest. So I'm just going to let you, as coach, tell us what you were thinking throughout that match, Alex. End to end. Right?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, ultimately, the end to come away with a 5-point win, and they're going home with 1 point is a real success for us. But I don't think that tells the true story of, we were blown away in the first 15 minutes. We were struggling to win collisions defensively, couldn't get hold of the ball, and we were put to the sword by a very good, by a championship team. And then we got a little bit of a foothold in. We started establishing ourselves in attack, got ahead in the game, and then repeated the first 15 minutes. And that was our focus at half time, is that we were showing what to do on attack, and we were showing the physicality there. We just weren't backing it up in defence, and that causes a bit of a problem. And then start the second half, we think we've got a lot of pressure here, but we didn't convert it. 2 or 3 times in the 22 and held out. And then you're thinking, was that our chance to go? But the girls, again, for immense character and establish ourselves, and we gave them away again. But I think, that last 10, 15 minutes really showed how we can capture the momentum of the game, manage territory, just manage the momentum better. And ultimately, we got over the line at the end because of that. But we got to learn not to put ourselves in such tough places, but testament to the girls that we came back from once but twice.
Absolutely. I mean, it seemed like there was, I was going to say end-to-end game, but that's not quite the story really. Like you say, it was sort of 10, 15 minutes of sustained pressure from either side, just flip-flopping back and forth. But it was quite an impact off the bench, I think, as well. Without singling too many people out, it was, a lot came on.
Yeah, it's fantastic, the quality of the squad. There's people on the high bench today that, aren't suited for us, but they can add quality as well. But yeah, the spark and the energy that the players gave was exactly what we wanted. And then we managed to start winning the power battle, winning more of the collisions. And ultimately, that second half turned a 12-point deficit into, I don't know, we won by it.
Oh, God. It was by 11, I believe.
Yeah, okay, so
I did take some notes on that for once. Yeah, 11-point win.
Yeah, so, that's a fantastic second half performance, and that's credit to everyone. And also, credit to what people did in the first half in making sure that we weren't too far out of the fight.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. And a word for Gabby Senft on debut, actually. I thought she went straight into the game with a few tackles early on and impressive all the way through, I thought.
Yeah, undoubted that Gabby's going to be a quality player in a Saracen shirt. She's proved it in an Exeter shirt, in a Bordeaux shirt, and more recently in a Canadian shirt. So we know what we're going to get with her, and it was good to integrate, because it's also a challenge this period of time. A lot of people coming back, but the people that have been here have been fantastic for us as well. We're in the position we're in currently because of the hard work of many people, and that's reflected in selection, but also integrating people back in. This block is going to see some changes that to get us all settled, and then we kick on post that bye week. But we're happy with today onwards and into Exeter away, which we know is going to be another incredibly tough battle, and we've already had 4 of those plus the pub power up games as well.
Yeah, it never ends as it run of big games. But just finally, a word for Leanne Infante as well. Obviously, a fantastic servant to the club, and nice for her to bow out with a win. But
yeah, Leanne, I remember we talked about coming to Bramley Road as a 17-year-old on the back pitches, and what she's done, coming in a player with immense potential, and to have the career that she's had. Words don't do it justice. She's had, just like any player who's been at the top for such a long time, there's been ups and downs, and the last couple of years have been real challenging. But you've seen what she's committed to in a Saracen shirt, and I think today, she's managed to bow out on her terms in a great victory against a championship side, probably showing I've still got a lot of rugby left in me, but she decided to go out on her terms, and it's very unusual in elite sport that you get. I won't say the fairy tale ending, but to end it on your terms, and to do that, fair play to her, and it's massively deserved. And just want to thank her for the numerous things that she's done for Saracens, and I think it's very easy to look through a Saracens gaze, but I've also seen what she's done, when she's been at other clubs. She's been, as I said to her pre-game, you're a player that we hated playing against, and that's almost like the biggest compliment I can give her. And to have her back at the club to finish her career and see that smile one more time is fantastic.
Well, it's definitely going to be quieter without her around as well.
Oh, there's a lot of voices in that change room. It will be certainly quieter than Leanne's voice, but that void will be filled, no doubt.
no doubt. But Alex, thank you very much. Fantastic win today. And on to another huge match coming up. But all the best for the rest of this short season if we don't speak to you again.
Thank you very much. Cheers,
Alex. Thank you.
Stay well.
So here post-match with Gabby Senft after a pretty incredible debut for you, really. Pretty interesting way to start your career at Saracens. How are you feeling?
Good. It was a great win, and I'm happy to be here.
Excellent. Glad to hear it. You are actually responsible for the first ever injury to the Fezcast host. This is me punching the seat when you scored the winning try.
Oh my gosh, that's unreal.
Entirely your fault.
Oh shit, sorry.
So that's a really good start for you. But after being at Exeter, Bristol, Bordeaux, Queensland Reds, I believe,
yep.
journeyed around a bit. What's brought you to Saracens?
Alex, actually. We had a Canada camp last year, and he's obviously been in the mix of it. And he was like, just opened up the conversation, was like, hey, would you want to come back to England? And I was like, what? He's like, I know you would never leave Bordeaux. And I was just like, well, send me a contract. He goes, oh, okay. And yeah, I never thought I'd come back to England. And not for any bad reason. I just, I just love playing in different countries, having that experience. And quite frankly, I'm so happy to be back. I love it here so far. So it's great.
Fantastic. But on to the game. I did speak to Alex afterwards, and one, he was very glowing about yourself. Two, he gave me a pretty in-depth review, but what he didn't tell me was what he said at half-time. It was pretty, 15, 20 minutes of the first half were, we were under a lot of pressure, put a bit of pressure on ourselves. But what did Alex have to say at half-time to sort of turn things around for the second half?
He's got that stern voice and just made it very clear what we need to do going into the second half. And that was just put our front foot forward and show what we got with Saries. We know that we know what we have and what we can bring to the table. And we did exactly that.
That's fair enough. So how long have you been training with the squad, actually, thinking about it? It can't have been too long.
A week and a half.
Thrown straight in at the deep end today.
But obviously coming off of WXV, it was like a great transition. And with all those internationals back, like we all connected very well. And it was a great week training. I'm assuming it helps having the likes of Alicia Corrigan and coming around as well. Just to exactly. Oh yeah, Alicia and I have been playing since we were 18. So we have that connection.
Absolutely. I think she knows everywhere where there's Tim Tams in the country.
Yeah, she loves her treats.
Okay. Now, for yourself, really great performance. I think one thing we noticed, a few of us sitting on the sidelines, I think you put the first tackle in after about 15 seconds, and it was probably the hardest tackle of the game.
Oh, wow.
Was that planned to make an impact early on, or just feel your way in and see how it goes?
I mean, that's always the plan, to have like the best tackle in your mind and like always, showing that dominance. But no, I just go with the flow, see what happens. Like if you overthink it, then you always make a mistake, So you just play what you see, do what you feel.
Fair enough. And is 2 tries a bit of a bonus for you, or are you always looking to be on the shoulder and score?
No, I am not a try scorer. So that I have two tries in my first debut with Saries, I'm like, holy this is so different, but I love it. I'm like always the one that's on the outside of the try, or like creating that space, and I'm like, woo, okay, let's do this.
How do you want us to edit this one, Harry? You all right?
I don't know if I'm saying this right. Oh, God.
We don't care.
Okay.
I was going to ask something and I really can't remember what it was anymore now. Oh, God.
But back to that try. Rosie, I was not expecting it. And Rosie had a sick offload. Like, as soon as I saw she got that arm free, I was like, okay, I'm on it. And then I put that arm up and I was like, just score that try. I don't know. It was just so much fun.
Fantastic. Now, other than scoring even more tries, what is your goal for a very short season with Saracens? It's not going to last very long. What do you really want to get out of the next few months?
Win the season. Win the Fram.
Job done.
Yeah.
That's absolutely fantastic. Now, look, I'm going to let you crack up with someone else because I'm too busy laughing. I can't think of what else I was going to ask you. So maybe we'll do that another time. But Gabby, thank you very much for your time. Congratulations on the win, and I'm looking forward to the rest of your Saracens career, however long that is.
Thanks so much.
Thank you. Perfect. Thank you.
Oh, Lordy.
Hi, this is Petrus Duplessis, and you are listening to the Fezcast.
This is the Fezcast.
Well, thanks to Alex and to Gabby for joining me post-match. And yeah, I genuinely am still in a bit of pain, actually, from the end of the match, sitting in a media seat and forgetting that there's a small perspex screen in front of the seats. And as Gabby went over for the final try, I punched it. So I've got a couple of nice cuts on my knuckles and a lovely couple of bruises as well to match. So little overexcited, but I think that was quite reasonable, right, Duncan?
Oh God, it was really exciting. But what I want to know, I mean, that's one of the interviews on the Fezcast where I want to see the video. What was she doing that put you off so much?
I'm just giggling, to be honest. I think we're all just having a laugh. You know what you don't know, because it's so fantastically edited. There's a lot of people around in that media room, and we've got the Saracens media team in there. There's other people waiting for interviews as well. Lots of players and things that are milling around, particularly on an occasion like that. I mean, sometimes it is quite quiet, but there was a lot of people around there, and I'm just totally distracted by absolutely everyone just peeing themselves laughing, really, at just some of what she was coming out with. I mean, we played that in pretty much unedited. There's a couple of bits that I have got rid of, but yeah, she's just a fantastic character. So yeah, it's gonna be a great person to have around the club. But
yeah, she had a great debut, that's for sure. I mean, it was a funny old game in many ways because it was a game of segments, wasn't it? Yeah. Gloucester were totally dominant until they had a player sent off. Then we were dominant. Then Gloucester were dominant, and then the bench came on, and we won it. So yeah. It was so entertaining, really end-to-end stuff.
Jez, you had the benefit of watching on a screen, which probably would have helped for some of the analysis. So what did you make of it?
Well, to be perfectly honest with you, I mean, first 30 minutes, if I was Alex Austerberry, I would have been preparing the teacups and the hairdryer for half time because, quite frankly, we just didn't perform. And, there were some places. And I think some of it was down to as well, and I think this always does tend to happen, Leanne Infante, and we've got to mention Leanne because it was her 100th game and now she's retired. But I think sometimes when you have those kind of like milestones or big things happen, it can affect a team. And I do think for 20 minutes, I mean, Gloucester came out the traps like greyhounds on speed. They really did. I mean, it was, and you can't argue. You can see why Gloucester Hartbury are double champions. I mean, Alex Matthews was doing everything from the base. There was Natasha Hunt was being a normal narky self around the park. They've got quality all over the pitch. And I think what they did was they front-loaded the game and we rear-loaded the game. We brought Marley Packer on for argument's sake. And I think that was the change in the game in so much as that, teams are beginning, and this is happening in the men's game as well. Teams are kind of like opening up with a weaker team and bringing stronger players on for the last 20 minutes. I mean, it's great when you can, if you're the men's team, you can bring on Theo Dan for Jamie George or vice versa. But, likewise, you've got back row players who weren't even selected. I mean, Casola, for argument's sake, not even selected. But then you can bring on Marley Packer for 20 minutes. And I don't know, Matt, you said that she was saying that she was pretty on her bootstraps after quite a busy period of time. But having that option and doing that, it seems to be a change in emphasis on the way that teams are picked these days.
I think that's fair enough. And yeah, I mean, wandering around after the game, there were a few comments that I had about the selection in general and whether it was right because of exactly what you said, the fact that first half we were second best by a long way. We had a period of time playing against 14 where we were okay, but we struggled playing against 15. And it did turn around from the second half. I mean, brought two props on at half time and everyone else soon followed. And exactly the same as in the men's game, in fact, a bit more so. The bench, I thought, made a huge impact and made a massive difference. But I think I agree with you, to be honest, Jez. I don't know that it's necessarily about picking your absolute best 15 to start with. It is about the 23 as a whole. But you're right with that, Duncan?
No, that is absolutely right. There was another change. I mean, of course, Marley Packer coming on is going to have an effect. It does, huge battering ram. But the other big change that happened when the bench came on is we started getting wide. up until then, we were battering and battering and battering against an extraordinarily good Gloucester defence. I mean, it sometimes works. You know, we did manage to get over a few times. But as soon as we started to get the ball wide quickly, with a bit of variation, we suddenly we caught up and overtook.
I think what actually stood out for me was in the first half in particular, we kicked a lot of possession back to Gloucester Hartbury, and they were just intent on running from everywhere. Second half, we, as you said, Duncan, decided to go a bit more wider and everything, and caused Gloucester Hartbury problems by keeping hold of the ball. And that's the other thing we did do a lot better second half, was keep hold of the bloody ball.
It's interesting because I thought that we were kicking out a necessity to an extent. You're absolutely right. Gloucester were brilliant going forward, but they had us under real pressure. And I think we had to kick.
I don't necessarily agree with you there, Duncan. I mean, I understand that, you know, when you're on the field and you're making a decision, and they've made a decision, and Zoe Harrison did have a really great game, and particularly off the tee. I mean, she got 7 out of 7, didn't she? I mean, it was a flawless kicking from the tee, and that really did make the difference at the end on the score sheet. But I just feel sometimes, you know, you've got to chance your arm a little bit and do something different. You can't just keep doing the same thing, especially if they're running back on you. And if, you know, they turned us over or they got in our faces and defended it better, well, you know, at least you tried something different.
Well, this is going to start turning into the kicking special, but actually a point that I'd like to make on that is one sort of 10-minute passage that I noticed when Beth Blacklock came on the pitch into inside centre, who is another kicking option. And pretty much immediately, twice, the ball went through Zoe Harrison, who didn't kick, and went to Beth, who then did, just changing that angle slightly. And Gloucester didn't deal with it particularly well. But then I think that did open up some space because they've looked to defend the kicking from the 12 channel, which then probably led to there being a bit more space out wide because they've dropped back. And then that was the period that we started to get a foothold in the game. So
Beth Blacklock caught the eye, though, didn't she? Not just kicking out a hand, but making a couple of real good runs. Good
couple of carries as well. And someone else who did as well that we should mention, who was one of those that came back from the international break, was Rosie Galligan.
Yeah.
Who very, very noticeable on the pitch, just crashing through everyone, really. I thought she was almost emulating Billy Vunipola at his best. That's the sort of direct run, straight lines. I'm just going to go straight over the top of you.
Yeah, she was superb, and you know, and with it, lots of nice touches in hand. There was one move where she went flying through, and I can't remember whether we did get a try off at the end of it or whatever, but it was just, you know, incisive, and I think that was what made the difference, is the fact that, yeah, okay, sometimes you kick, sometimes whatever, but in the second half we suddenly started seeing gaps appear. Now, whether that been because Gloucester Hartbury, the circus or whatever they're called, I'd put so much effort into that first 60 minutes thinking, and I think I could see why. You know, the plan there is if you're front loading your team 60 minutes, you want to have blown away the opposition, and to a certain extent they very nearly did, and then you hang on for the last 20 minutes and, you know, whatever. Whereas I think perhaps a little bit of gas run out, and, you know, bearing in mind they put more players starting who'd been away with England and Wales or whatever in the WXV to start with, you know, whereas we were able to bring Marley Packer off the bench, for instance. You know, Ella Virus Ella had a great 20 minutes as well. You know, bringing them on where they could go 20 minutes and be knackered at the end, as Marley undoubtedly told you, Matt. You know, that I think really did make a difference. And, you know, for everybody criticising Alex Austerberry perhaps for a little bit of selection queries, shall we say, I think he actually did get it right. And, you know, I mean, at the end of the day, Gloucester Hartbury are a great side. So, you know, it's no shame shipping 38 points to them. It's good that we put 49 on them and stayed in the game for 80 minutes. It was like the week before, wasn't it, when we talked about the Bristol game for the men, having the scrapyard fight to stay in the competition as long as possible and then be able to accelerate. And I think that's 2 weeks where the men have done it and now the women have done it. And, you know, well done.
I'd like to know, what I really want to know, though, is when you asked her for an interview, what exactly word for word did Marley Packer say to you?
I'll tell you later.
Bleep, 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 bleep.
It was a passing comment. It's a bit unfair, really. But she was off to do club interviews. It wasn't anything that I could get with her.
It's not that you have this effect on people.
Yeah, the second word was off. No, it's no. But Marley Packer, great in the 7 shirt, but someone else who has been this season and was again on Sunday was May Campbell. And I think we kind of need to talk about Bryony Field in the same bubble, really, because I don't know what's come first with that, whether May playing a flanker is a tactic or whether it's a case of getting Bryony in the team as well. Because I think there's elements of Bryony's game that are actually a bit better than May's, certainly as a hooker. But May is really starting to make that back row position hers, isn't she?
There was one moment with May, and I think it did lead to a try again, where she took a pass. And bearing in mind she's 4'10", she took it about 6'4" in the air. And she's come through like an absolute steam train, leapt to take a tackle, to take a pass that Maro Itoje would have struggled to take above his head, taking it, and then hit the contact as she's landed on her terms and driven through it. I mean, she, in the game when we were hanging on, she was one player along with Rosie Gallagher who kept the energy high. And, it's not only the fact that she's playing out of position, shall we say, or a position that we know she can do well, but she's also captain as well. And she is leading by example. And Marley Packer does it. May Campbell's very much in that mould that, I could imagine being on that field. And if May Campbell's going forward, I want to be on her shoulder because I know full well that's going to make me look good. And she did make players around her look good.
And as our SSA advert says, all of this for a tenner.
I'm glad someone's listening to it. But as Alex Austerberry said, there's not really any time to rest at all. It's a short season, and of course, the women having just beaten the league champions in a fantastic game, they've now got to go down to Sandy Park and play against Exeter, who are flying as well. So another massive test for them, and we'll see what comes up there. And the other game for next weekend actually is the one that is probably worth just discussing briefly, is the fact that we're away at Ealing, which, as a Prem Cup game goes, is probably one of the bigger banana skins, isn't it, really? I mean, Duncan, what sort of team selection are you looking for with that? Is it something that we actually, we want to win that game, or is it more just a case of giving minutes to those that aren't injured and away at the moment?
I think we'll see all of the young players, I would imagine, plus whoever needs a game. They could give KP another chance to practice his throwing in. And presumably, Tim Sweel will be playing. I think that's what he was brought in for. And it'll be interesting to see how well he goes again.
The interesting thing, I think, is, given the fact that we've discussed him in the first part and talked about England's internationals, do Saracens pick Tom Willis? And I would say, me personally, I would, because
no,
I'd want the reason I say it, Duncan, is I want him in the shop window, because I think, keep him going. He's playing some brilliant rugby. He would be an ideal captain of some younger players around, because you're not going to pick Ivan Van Zyl, you're going to pick Charlie Bracken, aren't you? Whatever. I think you do need a senior player, and keep him in the shop window, because, as Matt said, there's every chance that Steve Borthwick could be eating some humble pie after the New Zealand game.
That is a no-win decision. He proves nothing by being brilliant against Ealing. And imagine if he broke his hand. For goodness sake.
I'm just putting it out there as a potential idea. And
to be honest, the only thing I would say there is I think a senior player is going to have to feature in the back row, because I don't know that we've really got much else.
I do still have a pair of boots.
Well, yeah.
I wonder if Sansam Adajimi apparently was at the game on Saturday and looking fit, which means nothing. So I'm hoping he's back soon, because he's either hooker or back row.
Yeah, and to be honest, in the Prem Cup, we do often see players maybe playing slightly out of position. We've obviously got Toby Knight and Nathan Mitchell, I think, were probably nailed on to start, given that they featured last week. And Toby Knight is now one of your senior players.
He's looking really good, isn't he?
Yeah.
Tom Partner get a game, I would imagine.
I think some of those senior players that are just about coming back from injury will get a game. Please just give Gonzalez his week off. He obviously played half Crocs.
I wonder whether they'll give Alex Good a bib again and tell him to coach the team like he was on Saturday. That was interesting. I think it's a pretty strong indication of which way he's going.
Well, yeah, he had a long conversation with Rotimi Shegan on the sidelines at one point, which we saw on the television, and it was very much a directional kind of tactical thing that he was doing there. We know Goody reads the game better than just about anybody in the league, even at 47 years old or however old he is now. But, I think you're right. That's definitely a direction he's taking, isn't it?
A year younger than me.
Well, on that note.
Well, yeah, what can we say?
Stun a lot of them.
It is. Well, look, we'll be covering the next few weeks in the Prem Cup in the best way we can. Obviously, not a lot of it's on the telly, so we'll have a few of us at the home games. We'll see what's going on with the away games. So hopefully, we get John on next week because I think he's actually going to the England game. But we'll see what our coverage is like. Maybe our shows will get a bit shorter, which will be a bit of a relief for some people within the SSA, won't it? But anyway. Thank you for giving me the big boys chair, gentlemen. I really appreciate that. But yeah, it's great to talk to both of you. Get all three of us on the show at once. But yeah, we'll see everyone next week.
It's like old times.
Oh yeah. Cheers, Jez, mate.
Cheers,
bye.
Cheers, Duncan.
This is the Fezcast.